guys.
Hey.
Sorry to bug you.
Hey, how you doing, Suzanne? How you doing?
Gotta print this report that Jean wants by the end of the day.
Oh, really? That's fine. Yeah, that's cool. Hey, Suzanne. I just checked my email and I saw that I was approved for my vacation time. And I was wondering if you and possibly Oliver, since we was talking about it, were approved for your vacation
Really?
time. Yeah.
You was approved?
I'm in.
I just see my email from Jean. I was approved as well, so.
You know, Hawaii, I'm on my way now. You know,
Well,
I mean,
okay.
but-
Hey, Suzanne, was you approved for your time? I know you had this.
No, I just got the email from Jean. I was not approved. Do you know I already bought that cruise ticket?
Yeah, I remember.
I bought it because I got a discount if I bought it early. I'm so mad at her.
I would be so mad myself. Wow, I cannot believe that. Like, why can't she just have us all off at the same exact time? She can easily split the work between the duties of your work and hers and get things done because we're not in no type of production environment.
Right.
And, you know, it's not like it's an urgent matter. I would be completely upset.
Yeah.
I'm lost words.
What would you even do?
I mean, hey, Scott, Suzanne, honestly, I do understand your frustration, but Scott, you're giving her bad advice.
Come on.
You're giving her bad advice, and she still needs this job. And Suzanne, you don't want to get fired or something like this. I mean, what I would do, I would ask you, I would go and ask Jean why you denied my vacation time.
Mm-hmm.
I would just go into her, quote for quote, ask, hey, Jean, I saw your email. Wow, I wasn't approved of my vacation time as well.
But I think I just saw a team walk this man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wow.
Jean, I just read your email. So, Scott and Oliver get to take their vacation days, and I don't.
That's true, but there's nothing that can be done about it.
What do you mean there's nothing that can be done about it? You're the boss, aren't you?
Yes. I have that report that I assigned you earlier today on my desk by 5 o'clock.
Did you guys hear that? I cannot believe it.
No, I didn't hear everything.
That woman makes the most ridiculous, arbitrary decisions. So first, I get denied my vacation. Then I have to have this report in by the end of the day, which is an unreasonable amount of work.
Yeah.
I don't know what I ever did to her. Oh, I can't.
Wow.
I'm like beside myself.
Hey, let's try to calm down a little bit. Let's stay calm, because we really don't know what Jean is thinking. I mean, until she give you a clear answer, we're just assuming. So I would say just calm down.
I don't know. I think she really does have it out for me.
I do too.
You know, ever since I went over her head and I spoke to her boss about her not hiring that person out of college to help out on the help desk call center, like I can't do that by myself,
Yeah.
right? Like she has been on my tail.
Well, that's common sense, and it just don't make no sense.
Yeah.
So it's like you're telling me she denied you your vacation
Yeah.
time. She's not going to approve it. It's done.
Right.
And she's giving you a ton of work on
Yeah.
top of that.
Uh-huh.
Due today?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. That is crazy. I would tell Jean, I'm not doing that report today. I'm not going to stay late to do that report today. She could do the report herself.
Right,
Whoa,
right.
whoa.
Oh.
She could do it herself.
Yeah, she could.
Whoa, but saying that and telling her to do that is totally bad advice, Scott. Suzanne, you don't want to lose your job over something like this. I would say just try to stay calm and finish the report for the day. That's
Well, hey. If I was Suzanne, I would. This is exactly what I would tell Jean.
well, this will be your last day, Suzanne.
Well, I guess it would. I guess it would.
All right, guys. Well, this report is not going to do itself.
That's
So
true.
thanks.
No
Alright.
problem.
Oh, hey, Jean. Come in.
Hi, Joe.
Have a seat. You look a little frazzled. Is everything okay?
Well, the last few minutes have been a little rough. To put it mildly, Suzanne is not at all pleased with me since she just found out that I refused her vacation time. She just confronted me about it in the hallway on my way to your office. Frankly, I didn't even know what to say to her. She caught me so off guard, and I was in a rush to make sure I wasn't late for my meeting with you. And while I do think it was wrong of her to get so emotional and verbally accost me in the hallway, I have a feeling I didn't handle it very well. But she was very disrespectful to me.
Really? I'm sorry to hear that. I hate to see this type of tension here at the office. I mean, you and Suzanne have been going at this for weeks now. I mentioned to you that she came into my office earlier and said the department wasn't running smoothly. She blamed it on the fact that the employees are overworked. And I told her that we had recently had budget cuts and that you weren't able to hire anybody new at the time. Did you discuss that with her?
You know I didn't, Joe. Frankly, I was so upset that she came in and discussed it with you and went over my head. I never talked to her about it. And what does she mean my department isn't running smoothly?
I think that's something you and Suzanne should discuss. I don't want to speak for her. What's important is that you should know that if anybody ever goes over your head and comes to me, that I'll tell you. I don't want that happening any more than you do. But I do think this is a sign that the communication is broken down between you and Suzanne, and perhaps between you and the other employees as well. What do you think?
No, I think the problem is just between me and Suzanne. I get along great with everyone else. Why? Has anyone else come over my head to you?
No, Gene, that hasn't happened. I told you I'd let you know if anybody does. You can count on that.
Thanks, Joe. I'm sorry. I guess I'm just a little paranoid.
Gene, I do think there's some problems in your department. Reports are often late, and you say it's because the staff aren't following through with your instructions. And your staff seem unhappy these days. I've overheard some grumblings when I walk by your department.
Really? What are they saying?
It doesn't matter. What's important is that these issues need to be addressed immediately, or else they're just going to get worse. You're the director, and I count on you to keep things running smoothly and to hold everyone accountable.
I know, Joe. I know it's my job to make sure everybody does their work and turns it in on time. And I don't want to disappoint you, and I certainly don't want to disappoint myself. But you've told me in the past that I need to be compassionate and lead with empathy. How do I do that and make sure everybody still accomplishes all their tasks on schedule?
It's more about how you communicate and how the staff communicate with you. Let's take Suzanne. Would you say she's one of your informal leaders?
Oh yes, Suzanne definitely has the respect of her peers.
Okay, then let's just address her issues. Once you deal with Suzanne, you can more easily deal with everyone else. Agreed?
By all means.
Great, then I have a suggestion that I think might really help. I've been working with Dr. Margaret McCraw. She's the executive coach who wrote the book, The Relationship Code, and she recently addressed the climate of the executive team. We discussed her findings a few weeks ago. Do you remember me mentioning this?
Yes, I think I do.
Well, my first suggestion is that you read her book. It has a lot of great communication tips that'll help you both at home and at work. It actually helped me a lot with my teenager.
Well, dealing with Suzanne sometimes is like dealing with a teenager, so I'd like to read that book.
Great, well I'll give you my copy later and I'll get another one from her next week. And I'll also get you her phone number so you can call and schedule an appointment. I suggest first off that you and Suzanne meet together, and then if you need to schedule any appointments individually later to address the other staff, you can do that as well. Let me find her number. 410-929-9302.
Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate your support.
Once you meet with Dr. McCraw, I'm sure she'll have some wonderful tips on how to communicate more effectively and resolve this issue in a more harmonious and peaceful way.
That sounds great, Joe. I would really hate for Suzanne and I to continue the way we have been, and I appreciate all the assistance I can get.
No problem. Now let's talk about this budget you've been working on. How's it coming along?
Oh, great. I have it right here. We do have some numbers that we have to go over. If you look at this chart, you'll see. Hi, Dr. McCraw.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Jean.
You're Jean. Hi, Jean. It's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You must be Suzanne.
Suzanne, that's right. Nice to
Yes,
meet you.
Dr. Margaret McCraw. Please call me Margaret.
Okay.
Okay, come on in. Okay, have a seat.
Thank you. Thank you for being able to see us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good to meet you. Did you have any trouble finding the office?
Oh, no, not at all. It was easy.
Great, good. You had a beautiful day to drive here, so wonderful. Well, first of all, before we get started with our session, I just want to talk with you a little bit about confidentiality and making sure that we're all on the same page with this, especially since I work in your organization doing consulting work, and I know your boss, Jean, Mr. Clank. This session is completely confidential. I would never communicate anything about this session to anyone. And then, of course, the two of you would maintain confidentiality as well. Nothing here would be discussed with peers or colleagues or anything. So we're in agreement?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Great, okay, wonderful. And then the other thing I want to make sure you know about is that with confidentiality, unless you would ever convey a message of that you would hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, that would be the only time that I would have to break confidentiality, all right? And you would know if I had that concern because I would tell you, you're giving me an impression that something's going to happen, that you're thinking of hurting yourself or somebody else. That is the only time in coaching that you would ever expect confidentiality would need to be broken, okay? All right?
Absolutely.
Great, okay, wonderful. Well, Jean had scheduled the appointment and you gave me a little bit of a heads up on the appointment and had indicated that the two of you wanted to work on your relationship. I thought it would be helpful if you just gave a summary so that you and Suzanne and I are all on the same page in terms of this appointment today. I understand when Jean called me that there was an incident having to do with Suzanne's vacation, your vacation? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. Why don't we start with you, Jean, if you can just explain a little bit in terms of what you feel the issues or concerns are between you and Suzanne in general.
All right. Well, I recently was in a position to where I had to turn down a vacation request that Suzanne had made.
Okay.
And Suzanne confronted me about the refusal of a vacation in what I consider to be a very inappropriate manner and in a hostile manner and in a very public manner. And I find myself reacting in a manner in which I wouldn't necessarily if I had been approached in a different way. And I felt that that was pretty inappropriate, and it gave me cause for concern that I feel like there's a communication difficulty between us, that we have a little problem communicating, and it's one of the things I'd really like to address and try to improve between, in our interaction with one another.
Okay. And Suzanne, do you agree with what Jean has just said to you in terms of describing your relationship with each other?
I do. I think that we could certainly improve our ability to communicate with each other.
Okay. Let's take a moment and think a little bit about how this might have been different for you, Jean. And then I'll circle back around to you, Suzanne, and we'll talk a little bit more about your relationship with Jean. Let's take this incident, and I'll just bring up for the moment, one of the differences between coaching and counseling is that we're not going to talk a lot about the past. We're going to kind of go into the recent past, and then we'll focus more on the direction that the two of you want your relationship to take in the future.
Okay.
So if you think about this incident that you just had, your experience with Suzanne recently, and you think about how it could have been different, what comes to mind? What would you have liked Suzanne to have done when she approached you? Or did you want her to approach you?
Well, no, I expected her to approach me. I anticipated that, but what I would have preferred had happened is that she had called me or spoken to me and asked to set up an appointment to speak with me privately in my office to discuss the topic. I'd have been more than amicable to do that.
Okay, so why don't you take a moment and just tell Suzanne what you would have liked her to have done, and then Suzanne, while Jean is talking with you about what would have made a difference for her, after Jean finishes, I'm going to ask you to take a moment quietly with us sitting here and visualize having discussed the situation with Jean in a manner that she's asking, would have asked you to have done, okay? Sure. All right, go ahead, Jean.
Suzanne, I can understand you were upset at having your vacation denied, but I feel that I would have preferred that you had set up an appointment with me to meet in my office privately to discuss your concern and your unhappiness over the situation, and hopefully we might have been able to come to some kind of resolution. I can't promise you that the outcome would have been any different, but certainly it would have taken a different tone.
So setting up an appointment, being calm, being
Yes,
centered.
yes. And certainly more respectful tone of voice. I did feel that your tone of voice was extremely disrespectful.
Okay, so that's 2 tips, right? Approach you in your office. Would you have liked to have known ahead of time what Suzanne's agenda was, like
Sure.
why she was scheduling an appointment, or just
Yes, that
be
would
surprised?
No, that would be helpful also to just let me know what, the topic of the conversation would be. That would be very helpful.
Okay, so there's 3 tips here for you. If you take those tips and you play that out in your mind, I'd like you to take a few moments and visualize how the relationship might have played out differently and how this scenario, specifically how the scenario might have played out differently. And then I'm going to ask you to come back and talk with Jean and with me about how that might have made a completely different experience for you, or if it would have made a completely different experience in terms of your relationship, your ongoing relationship with Jean. Okay? All right.
Oh, hey Suzanne, come on in.
Hi.
Hey, go on and have a seat. I've been
Thank you.
expecting you.
So, as I wrote, I wanted to speak with you about my vacation time. I feel confused and upset by the news that you've denied my vacation time.
Right,
Mhm.
right, no. I understand you're upset. Absolutely, I'm more than happy to discuss it with you.
Thank you.
What was your experience like in this visualization?
I feel like taking the time to calm down before I asked for an audience with Jean was a more effective way of getting her to engage with me and start the conversation in a way that seemed like it could have been constructive.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what do you think you would need in the future in order to be calm enough to ask for an appointment rather than to approach Jean in the hallway?
I should probably take a time out before I have interaction with her or with anyone with whom I have conflict. Maybe sit for a few moments at my desk, give myself a timeline, say in 30 minutes, then I'll reach out to this person, take a walk.
Okay. And actually, when I think about it, when I think of the times I've been upset with someone or some situation, 30 minutes isn't very long for me. I actually need longer. Everybody's different. 30 minutes might be plenty for you. You know yourself better than anyone. So think that through a little bit in terms of what you might need. The other thing I want to suggest is if you have somebody in your life, not peers or colleagues or people who know Jean, but in your personal life, people who are really good at helping you process things, sometimes it's really helpful to take a matter like this to somebody you trust and talk it through a little bit.
Sure.
Do you have somebody like that in your life?
Yeah.
Great, okay, that's perfect then. All right. So, now I would like did you have anything to say to Suzanne about this before I move on?
Other than the fact that sounds like a great idea, no.
Okay.
It sounds like a very good approach.
Okay, good. Well, now I want to circle back around to you, Suzanne. I want you to tell Jean how you could have what she could have done to have helped you handle the disappointment of having your vacation denied how she might have told you, whatever comes to mind.
Well, I would say that the way in which you handled delivering the news over email felt pretty impersonal. I would say also I didn't see that you cared that the news was going to affect me personally, and I would have liked to had a conversation about it, maybe putting our heads together to see if there was an alternative to just denying my vacation, maybe rescheduling or something, because what I got from you was just a solid no. There's no flexibility, there's no way we can talk about this, just no. And that, you know, it made me feel like I don't matter as a person to you, and that I'm just sort of an object in the machine of the office.
I apologize for that. I was never my intention to make you feel like I didn't view you as a person. That's very unfortunate, and I'm sorry for that. And I agree with you. I do believe that my communicating through email was a bad choice on my part, a very bad choice. It was information that I anticipated was probably not going to make you happy, and that you needed to know some of the history behind making the decision. And you're right, I should have done it in person versus email. It was very impersonal.
So let me stop you for just a moment, because I do want to come back and summarize and talk a little bit about this. But Suzanne, I heard you say to Jean that the way she approaches via email made you feel. And then I just heard you, Jean, say apologize for making Suzanne feel a certain way. One of the things I want to bring to your attention is when we tell somebody that they made us feel a certain way, that we have just given our power to them. Instead of taking responsibility for our feelings, which would be, I felt this way when you did this. I felt this way is saying I take responsibility for my feelings. You can't make me feel a certain way, okay? When you say it that way, it has a very different message to the other person. Because when you say to somebody, you made me feel a certain way, now you're a victim. Does that resonate with you at all?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So if you were to just take this experience we're having right now in the office and communicating to one another, and you communicated a little differently to Jean and told her perhaps when she did this, you felt this way. When you did this, Jean, when you sent an email with what I consider bad news, I felt upset. Versus, you made me feel upset when you sent that email. Now I'm a victim. See what I'm saying?
Sure.
So you want to just be aware of that. And if somebody says that to you, then Jean, a response might be, instead of falling into, gee, I did make you feel, you know, and then you start feeling badly, and
Right.
but you're also taking control for things you don't have control. So Jean, if you take the suggestions that Suzanne has given you, and you play that out in your mind, just like Suzanne took a moment and visualized how the scene could have been different. And in your mind, use the tips that Suzanne has given you. The tips in terms of certainly meeting with her rather than sending her an email, and having compassion. Could you do that for us? And we'll just pause, Suzanne and I will just pause with you and play that out.
Hi, Jean.
Oh, hey,
you wanted
Suzanne.
to see me.
Yes, thank you so much for making the time to sit down with me.
Okay.
Come on, have a seat. I need to talk to you about something.
Sure.
And I did want to communicate this to you in person because it's unfortunate news. You had put in a request for a vacation a week of vacation at the last week of August. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm in a situation right now where I have to decline your request. I understand that this is not great news, and I just wanted to explain to you some of the reasoning behind my decision. And you're aware that Brad, your backup, has given his notice.
Right.
Okay, so he's only going to be with us in a short time. And unfortunately, other than him, you're the only other person that knows how to use that software. And we really value the work that you've been doing in that area. And we really can't afford to be without you. So, unfortunately, that's how we are right now. But if there's an alternate solution that we can come up with together, I'd be happy to entertain any ideas you might have, particularly, you know, altering the schedule a little bit, anything like that. I'd appreciate some conversation about that.
Okay. Well, I have to say I am confused. I know other people in the office, you know, got their vacation. I understand what you're saying. I am upset. I appreciate, you know, your offer to work together to find a solution. I don't have any ideas right now what that could look like, but maybe I'll chew on it a little bit and reach back out to you if I come up with something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds like a good start.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so how does that work for you? Were you able to visualize setting up an appointment with?
Absolutely.
Suzanne?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And talking with her one-on-one and in a manner that was much more respectful on both of our sides, and being able to sit down and discuss a possible path forward that would solve her problem and my staffing needs.
Sure.
And you know, in a fashion that was beneficial to everyone.
Great. So you're saying maybe involve her in the solution and
Yes.
give her a chance to come up with some suggestions
Yeah.
for backup coverage if that's feasible.
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. So you're much more open-minded than maybe Suzanne perceived you to be because
Oh,
of
yes.
all the interaction and the reaction that occurred.
Oh yeah, I think I am more open-minded. It's just I sort of shut down at the way I was approached.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
So,
I get
and
that.
I take responsibility for that. I mean, I should not have done that. I should have responded in a better manner. But
Well, I want to give you one more tip too, because that word should is really, we can be really hard on ourselves when we get into the shoulds. I oughta, shoulda, musta, you know, it can be, we can be tough on ourselves. So I want to just give you a suggestion. If you say I could have, that's also a different feeling tone to it. I could have done this, so now I think I'll do that. When we say should, we get into a guilt trip oftentimes. And then we start going low, and it's hard for us to move forward. Remember when we were talking earlier, everything's about moving forward. And the only way we can move forward is to acknowledge what we did, which I hear you doing, but we can acknowledge what we've done and how we could have done it differently without guilt trips, without projecting our feelings onto somebody else, staying in our power, and being able to acknowledge, I could have done that differently, which is what I hear you doing. I just want to take away the guilt trip from it.
Okay.
That's all.
Alrighty.
That's all. Okay? Work for you?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm about ready to wrap up this session today. I think that, you know, the two of you have really thought through how this situation could have been different. Do you feel you can take these scenes in your mind, the new scene of communicating in a way that both of you made suggestions to each other? Can you take that into your relationship going forward?
I think so. Yes. I think so.
Okay, good. I want to give you, before we finalize our meeting today, let me just give you both some tips that I put together that is a summary of effective communication, and to think a little bit about this and process it. And I'll just do the summary with you because you've talked about some things and you've given each other great suggestions today. So the first thing would be just remember that when somebody's upset with you and they maybe approach you in an angry manner, that their hostility really isn't personal, usually. It's usually more about a situation that they're upset about. And if we can remember that, it tends to keep us from getting defensive. And it tends to help us respond rather than react. All right? And so keep that in mind. The other thing would be that when somebody's upset with you or you're upset with them, that it's always good to stay very focused and to give the person who is approaching you in an upset manner or an angry manner, to give them your undivided attention. It's easy to be curt and cut them off, and I heard you saying that you felt that had happened to you, Suzanne. That's a very easy response when somebody approaches. That's what we all want to do. We all want to get out of there quickly, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to keep that in mind, and instead of following that feeling of let me fly out of here, that flight response, instead give them your undivided attention. Even if you only have a moment, like in this case you were going somewhere, you had a meeting, but 30 seconds, 1 minute of undivided attention to set up an appointment with them means everything, usually. Okay. The next thing would be to let a person know when they're angry that you hear that they're upset, and you want to acknowledge that, and you want to address it with them, but you want to do it in a way that they're going to have your undivided attention. So if you explain to them, I do want to speak with you, I can speak with you at a certain day and time, maybe today at 4 o'clock, maybe tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Give them a day, give them a time, let them know that you will give them your undivided attention, but right now you're heading to a meeting and you can't possibly give them the attention they deserve. Do you think that would have helped you?
I think so.
Okay, keep that in mind. So the other thing is to also steer the person into a private place if you can. In this case, Jean, you were heading to a meeting, you were rushing to make your appointment. Whenever possible, though, to steer the person into a private place, to even tell them that you do hear them, you know they're angry, and you want to set up a time with them. All right. And then the other thing is, of course, keeping your voice calm. I know, Jean, you had mentioned that to Suzanne, that would have made a huge difference for you. So, again, always trying to keep your voice calm, and if somebody's upset with you, instead of raising your voice to match theirs, be aware that when you lower your voice, the other person tends to lower their voice as well. Okay? All right. And then the last thing, the last tip here for you is to keep in mind that if you can help the person feel supported, that you empathize with them, you feel compassion for them, then they usually don't feel they have to keep shouting at you. So, okay?
Okay.
All right. Would you like to set up a check-in appointment in a few weeks and see how things are going for the two of you? Okay.
Yes, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. So why don't the two of you talk things out, see what you feel would be best for your agenda. And how about you, Suzanne, if you work with Jean on this and give me a call and see if we can set up a time that matches everybody's schedule?
Okay.
All right, that sounds good. Any questions for me today?
No, not at this time.
And you feel complete in the session? You feel that you got what you needed from it today?
Yeah, I think so. I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Okay, great. Well, then I will see you in a couple weeks, and I'll look forward to hearing from you. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.